Hello, hello, hello. We're going to get started here in just a minute. I'm going to give everybody a chance to get here. I thank you for joining us tonight. We've got an exciting Facebook planned for you where we are going to cover the third of the 4 agreements. I'm going to wait 30 seconds and then I'm going to begin a little bit of a recap on the past few weeks, and then we're going to get right into it. Hello, Lou. Always great to see you, my friend. Hello, Miss Jane. Got a new camera stand, and it is absolutely not cooperating. Welcome, Chris. Welcome to all of you. In fact, let me see if I can fix this while stalling for time. See if that's any better. All right, well, let's jump into it because we are in the third of the 4 agreements. This is a process, like everything else that we talk about, everything else that we are going to cover. It's all a process, and it begins, and I cannot stress enough that it begins inside. Everything starts with the self-love, self-worth, self-care. And until we have that, until we truly have healthy self-worth, healthy self-love, everything else is going to be out of balance. And so when we talk about the first of the 4 agreements, be impeccable with your word means to honor yourself. And before you can honor yourself, you have to know yourself. And really what it comes down to is we must have a healthy, not an unhealthy, not an arrogant, but a very healthy self-love, self-worth, high level of self-esteem. If not, everything else falls apart. And that led us to the second agreement, which was don't take anything personally. And see, it's so easy to connect the dots on that because if you have a very healthy self-worth, a high confidence, a high self-esteem, a high level of self-love, then it's very difficult for someone else to say anything to you that's going to trigger you and cause you to second guess, question, defend, whatever. So the second agreement, don't take anything personally, is again directly linked to knowing yourself, honoring yourself, and having that healthy self-love. And that brings us to the third agreement, never make assumptions, which I have to be honest with you, is quite possibly the one that is the most damaging. As I said in my post earlier today, it is the relationship killer. Self-love is important. You have to have that healthy self-worth. But regardless of how you take care of you, how you feel about yourself, how you treat yourself, when you're in relationships with other people, the one that will derail the relationship the most frequently is assumptions. And I'm going to let that sit for a second. I want you guys to write down, I would love for you to write this down, that we have to get out of fear. What I mean by that is that until we're full of self-love, until we have a healthy self-worth, we have a fear of judgment. We've covered it on previous messages. The fear of being judged, fear of judgment is crippling. And that fear of judgment causes us to second guess everything about us. So if you still have fear of being judged by other people, if you truly have fear of being judged by others, here's what's going to happen. And this is the problem. you are going to make assumptions about other people. And assumptions are just like expectations, false expectations about other people. What they are they are unyet met resentments. I'm going to say that again. If you make assumptions about other people, if you have predisposed expectations about other people, all that is an unmet resentment. And that resentment is a guaranteed killer of the relationship. I wish I could share my personal examples with you, but it would come out in a way that it would appear I was talking poorly about the other people, and I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to give the examples. But regardless of how much I work on me, I still have people I have relationships with, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, a business relationship, whatever. What happens is when that person doesn't have the same level of self-worth, self-love, self-esteem, self-confidence, then they are going to project their fears. They're going to judge me, they're going to judge other people, and they're going to project those fears onto other people. And they will play out in the absolute most horrific ways. And I'll give you a couple of generic examples, but if someone has a fear of being judged and they have a low self-worth, and then they are expecting you to do something, they are expecting you to be or act a certain way, and you don't do it for whatever reason, it becomes really easy for them to become resentful. And when they become resentful, they will then attack you for doing something that you had no idea. Meaning, the resentment is not based on reality, it's based on a false narrative in their mind of how something should be or how they would like it to be. In fact, here's an easy example. I'm asking you guys to honestly respond to this, please. How many of you have ever had a situation in a relationship, whether it was with your parents, whether it was with your spouse or significant other, whether it was with your children, whether it was with your brothers and sisters or your best friends? Doesn't matter. Ever been in a relationship and had a situation where someone said, well, you should have known what I wanted? Just that simple statement. You should have known what I wanted. Just please give me a yes if you've ever had that experience where someone threw in your face in a resentful, angry way, you should have known what I wanted. Because that, when it comes to counseling, that right there is the number one reason that people end up divorcing, breaking up, having a very difficult friendship relationship, because one person had the assumption in their mind that you know me, and because you know me, you know what I want, you know this, you know that, and I'm not passing judgment, which is again like why I'm not giving my personal examples, because I've had it happen to me twice in the last 10 days. Twice in the last 10 days, I've had two people that I have relationships with blow a gasket because something happened in one instance and something didn't happen in the other instance. But watch this. In each example, one, something did happen, and the other one, something didn't happen. But because they had an idea, an expectation in their mind of what should happen, how it should play out, how it should result, they had a feeling in their heart, and I really want you guys to pay attention to this. They had a feeling in their heart that hurt them. Hurt them. And it got from their heart to their mouth, and instead of having a healthy dialogue and a conversation with me, it went past their mouth into their head, which I call crazy town. Because see, if you don't have a healthy conversation with me about whatever it is that has bothered you, you're only having the conversation with yourself. Now, I'm sorry, but Having a one-person conversation about something that bothers you only results in crazy town. And so what happens is they then go ahead and continue to run wild with the assumption, with the expectation, with the false narrative, to where it becomes a full-blown issue now, of which I have no knowledge of, no awareness of, and I was never a part of. And so my point in sharing this with you is, if somebody has their feelings hurt, if somebody has an issue, something that internally they're simply saying, wow, this doesn't feel good, their responsibility, not yours, their responsibility is to let that feeling rise all the way to their mouth and then engage you in healthy dialogue. Healthy dialogue that's solution focused. Now, if you can't come up with a solution, it is what it is. But 99% of the time, if the person that's being accused did not have bad intentions, it can be resolved with a healthy conversation, a healthy dialogue. But if the dialogue is never a part of the process, and you skip the dialogue and go right to the mindset, and you let your mind go crazy. Come on, we've all done that. We have all of us, myself included, have been guilty of either having expectations that were unmet or making assumptions based on a false narrative, based on a feeling that we have. And that's what's wrong with our society. And I'm going to try to address a number of these things. I wrote some notes down so I don't miss them. But we've been taught in society that people are entitled to have their own feelings, and feelings are not wrong, and you're always able to express your feelings. And I'm going to say thumbs up. Yes, that's all correct. However, let's add in, as long as you don't act solely on your feelings without getting verification. Because feelings, for heaven's sake, are fragile, and they're not always accurate. You can have a feeling about something based on past experiences. You could have 17 lousy relationships. You start dating someone new, you are already bringing 17 lousy relationships and all that history to that 18th person, and you're going to have feelings based on things that they do or say that may have nothing to do with you and them. But you're bringing the feelings up because of your past. So how do you navigate it in a healthy way? You do a timeout. You go, holy smokes, this doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. But rather than make an assumption that the 18th person is as big a jerk as the previous 17, which, watch this, maybe it was only 4 jerks and you were bringing all the bad history, so the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and they all just became the new jerk because you were dragging your crap with you. Because if you keep making assumptions about people, then they are guilty, they are convicted, without there ever being an actual case, without there ever being any actual dialogue or investigation or anything. So if you have a feeling, you're entitled to it. If the feeling is negative, you're entitled to say it doesn't feel good. But your responsibility is to let the feeling rise to your mouth and then have a healthy, solutions-focused, solutions-based dialogue, conversation, not gossiping with your friends, but going directly to the person that you're having the issue with and seeing if you can resolve it. Because that brings a whole nother narrative. I'm not going to try to sound sexist, but it is absolutely heavily favored that women do this more than men. If a woman feels that she's somehow been harmed or disrespected or mistreated, and she chooses not to speak to the person that did it, what I have witnessed thousands of times is they will then go to friends to garner support. Now, it doesn't even have to be a boyfriend or a husband. It could be another female that they feel mistreated by. But to go out there and have that dialogue with anyone other than the person you have the problem with becomes a new problem. because now you're going out there and you're asking other people to support your position, which is not based on facts, it's based on a feeling. So now they're going to support you because they care about you. They're going to go out there and get you more amped up. So now what was a feeling is now enraged. It has gone past your mouth to the wrong place, to other people, not to the person that the issue's with. And now it goes back and it festers even worse inside your mind. I can't tell you how many thousands of times I've witnessed this in my career, working with people and in mediating issues and problems. Conflict resolution is 99% the people in the conflict having a healthy dialogue and finding the common ground. 99% of why it fails and never resolves is because the person who feels harmed goes elsewhere for support or stays in their mind where it goes into, like I said, crazy town. And then all of a sudden you can't have a healthy dialogue because you're not having a conversation with the person. You've now already accused them in your mind. You've already indicted them. You've already brought them to trial, and you've already convicted them because you were the judge and jury. So now you're basically just telling them what they did wrong and how much you dislike them, and they had no idea. They had no idea that it even exists. So as a baseline, let's talk about where this comes from and how we can avoid it. So I mentioned that it all stems from our lack of self-love. If you are not filled 100%, I'm not kidding when I say this, 100% filled with self-love, meaning you are content, you are comfortable with who you are, and you're not seeking outside validation. That's the goal. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, our goal is to be filled with enough self-worth, self-esteem, self-love that we do not seek validation anywhere else. That doesn't mean become arrogant. That's another problem. That doesn't mean become cocky and arrogant. It means being comfortable with who you are, being authentic, being yourself. When I do these Wednesday night Facebook Lives, I'm not selling you anything. I'm basically sharing with you my journey, my flaws, my mistakes, and hoping that if anyone cares enough to listen and pay attention, maybe I can help you navigate past some of the potholes so that you don't have to fall into every single hole that I did. If you need to, enjoy the journey. But if I can help you to navigate past it and missed it, God bless you. But if you can get to that point where you don't seek validation elsewhere, you now are in a healthy place, and now nobody can affect you. If somebody's talking about you, it bounces off you because you know it's not true, and you don't really care what they think because in time, people will figure out that they're full of garbage. You won't make assumptions about people because you don't fear being judged, therefore you're not going to judge other people. So everything begins with our ability to be in a healthy emotional state where we're not seeking that validation from anywhere else. However, there are some problems. As I said, the judgments, the assumptions are these false expectations. Now, there are two universal messages that we all grew up with. When I say it's been our programming, when I say that we have been programmed to fail as individuals because of our society, I will preface this by saying this is not an attack of our parents. This is not an attack of anyone. Because people gave us the advice, the knowledge, the experience. They gave us what they had from their own experiences, what they got growing up. But I really want people to understand this. And I want you to really ask yourself how many times you've heard this. How many times have you heard this statement, treat others the way you want to be treated? Please give me a yes or a no if you have heard that hundreds of times throughout your life. You need to treat others the way you want to be treated. because that's the programming that we get taught as little kids. It's the programming that we get taught growing up. For heaven's sake, it's part of our religion. If you're a Christian, it's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So this is not an attack. It's a generational, societal message that everybody has been taught. Now, if you were taught, treat others as you would like them, treat others as you want them to treat you. If you followed that message, here's where the flaw is. Here's where the problem is. Here's where the challenge is. What if they don't want to be treated the way you want to be treated? It's an extremely narcissistic, self-centered, arrogant message at its core that says we all want to be treated exactly the same. Does that sound healthy? It's not rhetorical. I'm asking honestly. Does it sound healthy that we all should assume that everybody wants to be treated exactly the same? Because I don't believe so. I believe that we all have different emotions. I believe that we all have, there's 5 different love languages. There are different ways that we wish to be communicated with. There are different personalities. Some people are confrontational. They prefer things blunt and upfront. Other people are non-confrontational and they would rather avoid confrontation. And so the bottom line is, it is wrong on every level for people to assume treat others the way you want to be treated. So, how do we resolve that? How do we resolve that? I think the easiest way to resolve it is for me to ask you, how do you want to be treated? I will tell you how I would like to be treated, and I will ask you, how would you like to be treated? And see, if we all bought into that concept, we could resolve 99% of the conflict. But we're all too busy believing the programming, the generational societal programming of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay? Treat others the way you want to be treated. It just sounds so simple. But the bottom line is, if I don't want to be treated the way you want to be treated, there's the problem. There's the problem. And it doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. Let's throw out the notion, the concept of good, bad, right, wrong, and stay within the fact that you have your own feelings, you have your own emotions, you have your own wishes, and so do I. And if we can decide that instead, I'll treat you the way you want to be treated and you'll treat me the way I want to be treated, we don't have conflict. But that requires us to have healthy dialogue first. Here's the other one. How many of you have heard, love your neighbor as you love yourself? Who's heard that one? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Because again, it sounds wonderful on face value. It sounds amazing. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And what they didn't teach us was that 99% of us don't actually love ourselves. 99% of us are the worst, most harsh critical. We are the worst critics with the worst criticism of ourselves that we could ever meet. Look at all the problems in our society. They stem from low self-worth, low self-esteem, lack of self-love, fear of judgment, because we're so busy judging ourselves, critiquing ourselves, harshly criticizing ourselves. And so we have issues with our own physique, with our own intelligence, with our own success financially. And we're carrying all that baggage and we're projecting that on other people. We We judge ourselves because we're so busy comparing ourselves with other people. Think about it. How many times have we heard, keeping up with the Joneses? Your neighbor goes out there and buys a new car, so you feel this awkward pressure that you have to go buy a new car too. Or worse, your spouse is putting the pressure on you to go get a new car because they want to feel that they're just equal. Like, we're so warped in this society because all of our validation is elsewhere. We're seeking validation elsewhere by buying things and by having things and by accomplishing things instead of what's most important, looking in the mirror and loving yourself, accepting, surrendering, appreciating who you are, and acknowledging if there's areas of improvement, you will then put the effort forth to improve. However, you're not going to judge and harshly criticize yourself. You're not going to condemn yourself. Because when you do that, you destroy everyone around you. How's that one sound? Until you are able to love yourself completely, without judgment, without criticism, you are incapable of being in a healthy, loving relationship with anyone around you. I'll raise my hand to it. I suffered from it for 40 years. I was 45 years old, when this became a part of my life, when I became aware of it. I'm 50, so for the last 5 years, I've been on this journey of awakening, awareness, and then resolving it. And it began when I was about 5 years old. So 40 years of living in this self-imposed hell. And guess what? I'm not pointing the fingers at anyone, but I know thousands of you are as well. And you show it every day in your words and your actions. So, how do we resolve it? We do the internal check. Number one, we work on ourselves. Back to the first agreement, being impeccable with your word. Honoring yourself, okay? Honoring yourself means knowing yourself and loving yourself. Being able to look in the mirror and take an honest inventory of who you are, accepting where you are right now, and then making the decision that if there's something you're not happy with, that you accept it and then you work on it. But you don't criticize yourself, you don't judge yourself, you don't condemn yourself, and you don't project that on other people. You don't take anything personally. So when people talk to you, when people attack you, when people do whatever to you, be strong enough to say, that's their problem. They are treating me in a way that reflects how they feel about themselves. Let that one sink in. When you treat me poorly, it is up to me to recognize that I have nothing to do with it. That you're just showing me the lack of self-love you have for you, the lack of self-worth you feel about yourself, so you feel the need to attack me needlessly. That's number two. Don't take it personally. And then number three, don't make assumptions. When someone does or says something, resist the urge to have a conversation inside of your own head in what I like to call crazy town, and we've all done it, and instead have the courage to engage them in a conversation. I'm not sure if he's watching tonight, but I have to give credit to John Jenkins, a good friend of mine. I think of him like a very, very dear friend and older brother who introduced the 4 agreements to me, but who taught me some of these principles along the way. And if somebody does anything that causes you to feel pain, hurt, or harm, it is your responsibility to engage that individual and only that individual in a healthy dialogue, in a healthy conversation. And the reason I say that is if you come to me and tell me what someone else did to you, it is my job to say to you, have you spoken to that person yet? And if you say no, my job is to say, then why are you telling me? Let that sink in. I thank you, John Jenkins, for that. If you have any type of an interaction with anyone at any time that hurts you, causes you pain, harm, or any form of hurt, it is your responsibility to have the conversation directly with that person. Address your feelings, address how you feel in a healthy dialogue, and allow them the chance to explain it, to express their sincere apology, or to let you know they really don't care. But either way, have that healthy dialogue with them in a conflict resolution mindset, in a solutions-focused mindset before you share it with anyone else. But if you make assumptions about what they did and why they did it, and you bring that assumption to Crazy Town or to other people, all you're doing is you are putting fuel on the fire, you are making it worse, and you are creating yet another problem on top of the original one. So that is the third agreement, never make assumptions. I hope it helped. Please do me a favor. I don't know what I can do to get all of you to do this, but comment. I'm asking for interaction on these videos. I'd like us to be able to become a very healthy, interactive community. So until next week, this is John Costino saying thanks for being here. Be blessed. I look forward to the comments, and I promise to respond to every single one of you. Good night. God bless. See you next Wednesday.